So I was reading my next chapter of The Woman with the Worm in Her Head and Other True Disease Stories of Infectious Diseases by Pamela Nargami, who is also a medical doctor. Um, in this next chapter, I'm not quite sure if I said the first chapter, but in this next chapter, it goes back to when she was a medical student, when she was med student, and where she had to do like resident hours and things like that she didn't quite like, and so she wakes up in the hospital after like a long night, and so because when doctors get tired, sometimes they sleep in the hospital. So she wakes up and then she gets her coat and she goes all the way home, and it just kind of gives you the way that it's being told, sort of gives you perspective of how it's like to try and just being a medical student. Well, she had to it's like all quiet at night. Like she has to go get her bike and she has to ride 2 miles straight in the middle of the darkness, like maybe 3 a.m. or something like that, and go all the way home to a house where she still has to share with two other classmates. And she says that she's like technically abandoned her family because like she's all the way somewhere else and no one else is taking care of her. She's technically alone, right, with people she doesn't really know. But eventually, she said throughout the year, she stayed together with 100 or so classmates. That if the lights went out, they would they could tell who every single person is based on their silhouette, right? And so it sort of gives you, like I said, it sort of gives you a perspective of the way it tells. It says that when you're becoming a doctor, you sort of have to make a choice. Are you willing to heal or feel like the emotions that the person who's suffering from a certain disease is, right? So she was saying like one of the patients had some sort of problem that they weren't quite sure how to fix. Like something happened with the kidney. They weren't. She was also kind of confused. She said she didn't quite remember, but something was wrong with the kidney, and then a lot of the bones and muscles were misshapen, like the ribs were bent inward, and she had to take she always had to take these take blood from the people, and she missed several times, and she was so scared doing it on this little kid who was like 11 or so. And so that was sort of a sacrifice that she had to do. She had to forget about feeling bad for this kid and just try to focus on trying to heal him and help him, right? And so she was saying there was this one Yale jock who came back, and he was really good at it, and he was almost every single time super confident, one poked and always in the right place, never missed the vein or anything. But she was saying that she missed almost every single time, and that really worried her. And one time dealing with a patient, she literally just ran away from the hospital and went all the way to her house because she was so scared about it, because she really didn't want to. She was so scared about failure. But eventually she got over her nerves and went back to the hospital and tried taking care of this patient. Although eventually the person died, she felt terrible. But after all of her years, she was talking about how she sort of changed, that it was kind of hard for her to cry when someone was dead, unless it was her family member. So it's sort of really something. You kind of have to lose a feeling. You really have to lose that kind of sort of feeling when you're becoming a doctor, is what she was trying to explain. And and she was also talking about this one kid who they eventually healed, which had a really weird infection, something about the eye that was about the arteries and veins clotting near there, and then they could see it through the eye. And eventually she got better, and they sent her home using the correct antibiotics. But eventually they figured out that she also needed a valve transplant to her aortic valve, and the aortic valve in the heart is very important because that's the valve to close, and that's the last valve that the blood goes to before getting pumped to the rest of the body. So if the valve doesn't work and there's so much backflow, that's all of the blood going backwards throughout the entire body going backwards right into the heart, and that would be terrible. So eventually they had to replace it with a valve that the doctors had to make themselves. But the thing is, as the person, this is a very young kid, as the person grows, the heart will grow as well, right? Therefore, the space that the valve was in will grow, and eventually, very so often, they would have to open this person up again, take out the valve, and replace it with a bigger one. And so she was saying she felt really bad that, this person's always at risk of, like, dying just because of a valve, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of the end of it, or where I'm at so far, just talking about what you have to do. So yeah.
So you like it so far?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's very informative. No, I don't think any other book I've read about medicine has really talked to you about, the things that you'll have to do during med school. I mean, that's really the way that she says it really puts you into her perspective, and I really like that. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. What did you learn the most based on that? I mean, that's what you just say, or you learned something else?
I mean, I'm just saying most of the main points because there was a bunch of stuff in there, like her having to talk to one of the people in the lab, like who like look at the specimen and they make sure and then they identify it, right? Like after taking a sample, right? And apparently she had like a long talk with one of this old guys who was working in the laboratory and was trying to calm her down and stuff. That wasn't very important. That's why I didn't really say it, but I felt like it's really, there's a lot, like, if you're becoming a doctor, you really have to see all these people suffering, right? I really haven't thought about that. Like, you have to sort of let that go, right? So yeah, I thought that was the most important.
So you have to be, you cannot be losing your senses. That's what you meant?
Right. Well,
you need to
more
be strong.
more like you have to lose your senses, because like you can't feel bad for the person. You have, your mind has to be 100% focused on trying to fix what's wrong.
Okay, that's the first part. The second part, you talk about these two diseases. You talk about the kid that was not having some bones issue.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, some infirmities with the body.
Yeah, so Rugger or something. Yeah.
Yeah, Rugger. Yeah, and sadly it was incurable, which is like even more sad.
So it's a deformity of the bones, yeah.
Right.
So it's difficult to look at. She's right. We saw a picture before. You might not remember it. Okay, it's a long time ago. I showed a picture. You remember?
Right.
That's a type of bone disease that people have. It's completely deformed. Your legs can be like this, curved. You can have curved legs or all these things. It could be other part in your body. So that's not easy. And even in a kid, that's even less easy to watch it. What I wanted to ask you, then you talk about the heart, okay?
Yeah.
So did you learn anything on this, or beside the feeling? I understand the emotion part.
No, like I haven't really thought about, like, I know, like, if you have to replace a valve in the person, obviously you would have to replace it, right? But I never thought of the problem where the heart has to grow.
That's
because
true.
the person, if it's a young kid who hasn't, I never thought about that kind of problem. Like, I was always thinking that, maybe the valve would have like a stretching, I might stretch or something. I think there's several kinds of valves that they might place into people. But
that's a good point. At the time, maybe when she did it, the valve would not grow with her heart, or we don't know how fast, the growth. Maybe they would but that's a very good point. You're right. Very good point. Okay.